Good evening and welcome to this regular session of the Lakeville Area Schools Board of Education. This meeting is officially called to order. Please rise and join in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Board members in attendance tonight include Director Kelleher, Director David Anderson, Chair Baker, Director Carly Anderson, Director Terry Lind. The board is joined by Interim Superintendent Michael Bauman and members of the Executive Cabinet, Bill Holmgren, Brenda Albrecht, and Dr. Emily McDonald. We'll get started with good news.
Thank you, Chair Baker. Good news from Lakeville Area Schools. Students of the Month, we'll start there. Lakeville Area Schools has Students of the Month recognition program that highlights 3 students each month. Students can be nominated by anyone in the Lakeville Area Schools community, students, staff, families, and our community members. We are excited to announce that December Student of the Month is Mithun Giri, 4th grade, Cherry View Elementary, and Chung Lin, 6th grader out of Century Middle School, and Ava Taylor, a 9th grader from Lakeville North High School. So congratulations to those students. Staff of the Month. Lakeville Area Schools is excited to have a monthly recognition program that also highlights our staff members. They can be nominated by anyone in the Lakeville Area Schools community. We're excited to announce that December's staff are Bethany Lempola, Learning Specialist at Highview Elementary, and Jeff Monson, who's a paraprofessional at McGuire Middle School. So congratulations to them as well. Lakeville South Encore nominated for Best Rock Video. If you haven't seen it, please do. It's worth your time. It's not a long time. Congratulations to Lakeville South High School Encore, whose music video, The Pretender, originally performed by Foo Fighters, professional group, has been nominated for Best Rock Video at the 2025 Acapella Video Awards. This project was a collaboration between Lakeville South High School's talented students and industry professionals with creative vision, hard work, and passion coming together to produce an extraordinary production. Let's celebrate and cheer Encore on as they represent Lakeville South on the national stage. To see the full list of nominees, visit casa.org or casa.org. And you can read more about the amazing things that are happening across our district at isd194.org/news. That is good news, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Oops, sorry, microphone wasn't on. For board communications tonight, we have not had any participants recently with public comment or our stakeholder session, so we don't have any information to update from that. Do any board members have information from committee hearings that they've attended recently? Committee hearings, councils, sorry. Dr. Carly Anderson.
I will just share, I was at the MDCC, the Multi-District Collaborative Council, is that what this stands for? Last week, and we actually met in Burnsville. We collaborate with District 191 for that, and it was great just to hear different things that the 2 districts are doing with regard to equity planning and the A&I plan, and just changes that have occurred in both districts. So it seems like there are some similar issues that ideas were being generated, and it was a great group to be a part of.
All right, thank you very much for that update.
At 9/17, we just did our big board evaluation, so we'll be going over those results in January. That was a big thing.
All right, thank you very much. Just go ahead.
We also had the Minnesota.
Is your mic on? There we go.
We also had the Minnesota School Board Association Legislative Delegate Assembly last weekend, Friday and Saturday. And so Friday night, the speaker that they had was Professor David Schultz to talk about kind of an update on what the future looks like with the forecast for school funding and so forth. And with the state of our legislature, they're not expecting us to really know what our funding is by the time we have to have our budgets approved. So that should be interesting, Superintendent Bauman. And then Saturday, we spent 6 or 7 hours doing the setting the platform and establishing things for our lobbyists to lobby for on behalf of our school districts around finances and some of the things, support services and stuff that our teachers need. So we'll see some of that come out throughout the session.
Thank you for that update. Director Lind, did you have anything? Nope. Okay. Well, it is an exciting day today, and at the end of our meeting, we will look forward to honoring our outgoing board members, and then it's also an exciting week in the district for everyone as we get ready for winter break. I'm sure all their staff and teachers are well aware that the kids are very excited about that. So we'll go ahead and move on to the agenda. We don't have any agenda additions tonight, so do I have a motion to approve our agenda for tonight?
So moved.
We have a
I'll
motion
second.
by Director Lind. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Director David Anderson. Any discussion on the agenda? Okay, hearing none, we'll put it to a vote. All in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries 6-0, or 5-0, sorry. Not used to being down a member. Do we have, are there any items that board members would like to remove from the consent agenda for further discussion? Nope, okay. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Director Kelleher. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Director Carly Anderson. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Okay, hearing none, we'll put it to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 5-0 for the consent agenda. We don't have any items to discuss then for the consent agenda, so we'll move on to reports. This would be our truth and taxation hearing, Pay 25 tax levy, and this will be by Bill Holmgren and Interim Superintendent Michael Bauman. My goodness, I'm having issues tonight. Thanks for your patience.
All right, can we get the charts up? I just want to introduce the topic
Sure.
and cover down on just the beginning of this. We all know that in our community, we have this requirement to do truth in taxation, and what it essentially is sharing about our what our taxes are within the community. So we're required between November 25th and the December 28th to conduct this opportunity for our community. Has to happen after 6 p.m. I think 1908, 708, we can meet that requirement. We may be part of regularly scheduled meeting, and that's what we are doing here tonight, and must allow for public comments, which we in fact will do. We may adopt a final levy at this meeting. So we're going to also talk about current year budget and proposed property taxes as part of this presentation. This next chart. So this is our agenda, some background information, district's budget, district proposed tax levy for taxes paid in 2025 or Pay 25 levy, and then listen for public comments. Next chart, please. So the Minnesota legislature, this is the directive that we have and the requirement that we have that our uniform system of public schools, we have to, we get from the Minnesota Constitution our funding through taxation. And this is just a quote that identifies that in our requirements as a school system in the state of Minnesota. So the state sets our formulas which determine revenue, and most revenue is based on specified amounts per pupil. Our enrollment drives our funding, is the basic message there. Tax policy for local schools also is set by the state, and maximum authorized property tax allowance or authorization is also set by the states. And districts can levy less, but not more than that authorized amount that the state sets. So state also authorizes our school board to submit referendums for operating and capital needs, to voters for approval, which is what people classically understand as a referendum or a levy vote. And so that's all part of the process. And then I'm going to have Bill dive into the details here. But again, we take taxes very seriously in this community. We, as a school system, have to report to our constituents, our community members, and that's what this represents this evening. And so hopefully we can learn something. If not learn something, hear something. So thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the school board, Superintendent Baumann. Yes, tonight we're going to talk about the pieces that go into our budget, and this is just something we like to remind everybody of, that the state of Minnesota really hasn't funded school districts, at least up to the level of inflation, since 2003, which has been quite a few years now. This past year, the year that we're in right now, we got a 2% increase from the state of Minnesota, which amounted to $143 per student. But if we would have kept up with inflation over the years, we'd have another $1,356 per pupil unit, which would generate for the school district another $18 million. So the gap there is considerable, and that's why you see many school districts go off for operating levies to try to fill that gap. Here's a chart over that period of year. Of course, the orange is what we've received from the state of Minnesota. As you know, a year ago, we had a bigger increase than we saw for many, many years. And if you look very close, you can see a little tiny blip up on the orange, but you see what happened with inflation, what happened with the actual cost of what we need to do was very huge. So the gap actually widened over the last couple of years instead of getting any better with the new funding from the state of Minnesota. The other area we're really underfunded is special education. In 22, cost of providing programs were underfunded across the state of Minnesota by $712 million. And still now, when we look at 2027, even after the recent funding we received, new funding for special education, still short over $400 million at $408 million. So for the school district, that gap is still about $6 million, so quite a bit of funds that we have to subsidize from the general fund to cover our costs in special education. One thing to keep in mind, we talk about the levy, it goes up, it goes down, there's all these reasons that it does so, but just because that happens, it doesn't mean we have less or more money. Lots of times, what we see is a revenue neutral situation where the state of Minnesota gives us a new levy dollars, but then on the backside, in the aid side, they actually take dollars away. So I just want people to understand that. And again, our expenditure budget is limited by state set revenue formulas, of course, based on the number of students we have. And then plus the voter approved levies and the fund balance, of course, limits it too. Okay. The levy cycles are a little different when we look at school districts compared to cities and counties. The city and counties are going through their tax hearings right now also, but those dollars are immediately for their new budget, which starts on January 1st. In school districts, our fiscal year runs from July through June, so that when we talk about the levy tonight, none of these dollars are available to us till way next July. It's for the fiscal 26 school year. Now tonight, for fiscal 26, we don't have our budget in place yet. We'll be working on that over the next few months. So the budget information we talk about tonight is our current budget, the budget we're in. We're in our 5th month. Well, actually, our 6th month is December, I guess, at this point. But when we look at a school district, we do fund accounting. So our general fund is in a fund, food service is in a fund, and so on. And what's very important to understand is the general fund can help out all the other funds, but we can't take funds from any of the other funds and help in the general fund. So it's only a one-way street when it comes to dollars being transferred between funds to help out. Now this is our current year budget. When you look at more of the pink, red area, that's how we ended up last year. So you look across that top line under general fund, you know that we started fiscal 24 with a fund balance of about $1 million, and now through this past year, it grew to about $16 million. So our financial position is better than it was. The year that we're in, you'll see that we're anticipating about a $2 million increase in our fund balance. And as we talked last month, we really are seeing our budget performing well, and we expect that to be a little bit more. And we expect our fund balance to be back above 5%, which matches the board policy to have 5% of our previous year's expenditures in the bank. When you look at student nutrition, you'll see that fund continues to increase. As you know, all breakfast, lunch, everything is free now, and those reimbursement rates that the state is giving us and the federal government is giving us are larger than they were before. So as we see a large increase in actually participation, we have a lot more students eating, plus the higher reimbursement rates, you'll see that we expect that fund balance to increase again. This is an area we are trying to use all we can to take care of any type of equipment needs that we need. Some of our buildings are a little older, and we're replacing everything we can because the state really is going to come back, we expect, in about 12 months and tell us that we have to go back to the same funding level or the amount that we can leave in the bank down to only 3 months, and we're by far over that at this point. So we're trying to use those so we fall within line. Now, community service, you see, if you look back in the beginning of 24, you see that fund balance was actually in the hole. And that's because of the pandemic. All those, not all, but by far the majority of the programming that happens in the community service fund is based on the revenue they get. So when the pandemic came and people started coming and stopped coming and using those programs, we lost our revenue, but we still had the payments to go out. So that hurt their fund quite a bit, but this past year, you can see they increased their fund balance by $400,000. The budget we have in place is to improve a little bit, but this fund now is behaving in a way that it was before the pandemic, and we expect that to be higher than that at the end of this year. Building fund, all our funds run through here for any type of building project that we have, including our LTFM funds. So a lot of volume there, but of course, we see that fund balance coming down quite a bit, but that's to be expected as we finished up our brand new elementary school. Those funds now have been used, and now it's really the LTFM running through that fund or in the next near term. Our debt service fund, as you know, this fund is only for paying debt. So we levy, all we need to do is to pay bonds that we owe at this time. Now, as I've talked in the past, the school district is allowed to levy actually 105%. The reason for that is in case someone or a group of people does not pay their taxes in time, we don't want to be short funds to make those payments. So what happens as that fund balance builds up a little bit, we actually give it back. It doesn't just grow and grow and grow. So anyway, so we levy a little extra just to make sure we're safe, but you see we have a nice healthy fund balance there at $5 million. Trust fund. All the funds that run through here are all our scholarship funds. These are donated funds from community members. And what this particular fund does is any increase or any interest we receive, that is what's used for the scholarship. So the base or the principal stays in that fund for future generations. The internal service fund, what that is actually our self-insurance program for both health and dental. This is something we started about 5 years ago as being self-funded, and this fund balance has grown very healthily. Now that we expect to be about $7.5 million at the end of this year, and it's almost to that place where we can really use it to try to subsidize some of our future premiums. So very, very good news, and we'll look at that. So overall, you see that this year the budget is just under $300 million for fiscal 25. I'll just get a little perspective on the sizes of the different funds. You can see here's all our revenues, all our funds. You see that the general fund is by far the biggest portion. We have $209 million flowing through the general fund. And you can see the second biggest portion is actually our internal service fund or our health insurance, dental insurance. They're at $33 million. And then, of course, a third is our debt service. The rest are smaller amounts, but it gets to give you a little bit of perspective on the volume of the funds. When we look only at the general fund, again, you see the state by far gives us the biggest piece of that pie, and the local has our taxes included in that, and the tax portion is about $50 million. So about a quarter. When you look at the expenditure side, you see, of course, we are a people business. And you look at the salaries and wages, you look at the benefits, by far, 3/4 of that budget is just for staffing for our students and support of our students. When you look at the purchase services, a lot, biggest piece of that is our transportation for transporting our students. This debt service piece here is not the debt service fund we just talked about. It's just debt service that happens in the general fund. When we look at it by a program level, instead of the object level, again, you see regular instruction, you take regular instruction and you take the special education. That's by far the largest piece of our budget. When you look at pupil support, what that is our libraries. It's all of our technology, all our devices for our students, things like that. That's what fits in there. And then district. Well, I guess I want to point out the administration here is that we're running about 2% of our total budget is on 2%, is on administration. Shifting over, looking at our property tax. So what we're going to look at is, how these numbers determined, and we're going to compare from last year to this year, any type of changes when we look at the levy, and of course, reasons that happens, and then talk about our taxpayers and how that impacts our taxpayers. When we look at property tax background, every owner of property is taxed by very different authorities. The city, the county, of course, school districts and special districts. But anyway, each taxing jurisdiction sets their own tax levy, and it's based pretty much always on limits of whatever the law allows us to do. And of course, then the county sends out the bills, they collect the funds, and then they distribute those dollars to those different taxing authorities. In November, you should have received a tax statement that looked similar to this. That is always sent out between November 11th and 24th, and that's going to tell you the different taxing jurisdictions that your particular property sits in, and it's going to show you last year's taxes and this, so you can see the changes from year to year. Okay, for a school district, there's actually 40 different categories or revenue streams that are taxed on. Here in Lakeville, we don't have 40, but we do have 30. It's quite a few different revenue streams that come into the district. And again, as Superintendent Bauman said earlier, the maximum levy amounts are calculated by MDE. These amounts aren't generated by the school district. They come from MDE, and they're set in statute by the state of Minnesota. So it comes from state law, and of course there is voter approval pieces, which we have some operating levies, which we've asked the voters in the past for some funds, and we'll talk about what those funds are. And then we'll talk about the key steps here on the next slide of how that works. So we are actually a small piece of this process, but again, the city or county assessor in our situation, they estimate the market value on every single parcel of property in their particular jurisdiction. The legislature sets the formulas for tax capacity and the school district levy limits, and then the county auditor calculates what that tax is on each parcel of property. The Minnesota Department of Education calculates our detailed levy limits on each one of those revenue streams based on formulas approved by the legislation. And almost 100% of all those formulas has an enrollment number from us in that. Of course, the school board adopts a proposed levy in September. When we first get the first numbers, that goes to the county so they can look at what those levy amounts are going to be on all those different parcels, and then they send out those tax statements in November, and they collect it next year. We look at the kind of the timeline of each year. September 8th of each year is when the school district gets information from the Minnesota Department of Education telling us what we're eligible for I brought that back to the school board here the 24th of September as a preliminary levy to go through these amounts. And these amounts have been saying, these dollar amounts we're going to talk about tonight are exactly the same as we had back in September. And then, of course, that information is used for the county to send out the property tax statements so everybody can see what they expect to pay. And then now we're tonight, December 17th, where we have a hearing now talking about these taxes, and then it'll follow up with the board certifying that levy. Now, overall, this year, we can say that our taxes actually are going down. They are not going up. We're seeing a small decrease in our levy here of $281,000, which is about a third of 1%. And over the last few years and the inflation that we've saw some increases. So this is kind of nice to see that we bringing forward a levy that does not have an increase. So unless you have a huge change and you did something to your home that really increased its value, you will not see an increase from the school district. I can't say the same for all the counties and cities, but from the school district, you won't see an increase. Now, I'm going to briefly just walk through these different streams, to get an idea of the dollars that we do levy. Now, this first section that says unassigned components, these are dollars the school district can use for whatever means they see fit. So it mainly goes into education for our students. And you can see that number 4, that's the operating levies that have been passed in the past, and that generates about $24 million. The local optional revenue, now that is a levy that the state of Minnesota has allowed school districts to levy. It was mainly put in place for school districts that could not get a levy passed. They could not get an operating levy passed, and they said, you're allowed to levy $724 per pupil unit without having to go to the voter. In our case, since we had operating levies, they take $724 out of our operating levy and put in here. So we'll have this LOR levy. It's permanent at this point, but it's $724 total. The hard part about this is we have inflation figured into our operating levies, and in this situation, there is no inflation figured in that $724. It's just the same amount each year. Transition, we have a small amount here of about $15,000. There was a change in the way they formulated these dollars a few years back, and they're keeping schools held harmless, so we get that extra $15,000 at this point. Equity revenue is also a piece of that LOR. So as new operating levies come up for us and we pass new ones, the equity levy actually goes down. If we get to the maximum amount that we could actually levy, we would not get any equity levy at all. Okay, assigned components, of course, these are components that are restricted. They can only be used for these particular programs. So you see the achievement integration, here we're levying about $560,000, and there is a aid component to this where we have 1/3 here levied and 2/3 comes from the state of Minnesota. So it's about $1.6 million that we have for that program. Our safe schools, these are the dollars that we are allowed to levy for our SRO officers. When you see District 917, that's an intermediate district that we are a member of. We have several members of other districts around us that are members of District 917, but they don't have any levy authority. So we all levy a small amount from all of those different member districts, and then those funds are transferred to District 917 for that same purpose, that safe schools in this situation. Vocational, there is a small reimbursement piece. Vocational doesn't come close to covering our actual costs, but it does help. You see, we get about $500,000 through levy for our vocational program. Reemployment, this is really a reimbursement for us. These are dollars that we had to pay out to the state of Minnesota for employees that were eligible for unemployment. QComp, this is a staff development training piece of our budget, and again, 2/3 of these dollars actually come from the state of Minnesota. 1/3 of it here is levied, so we get about $3 million a year for QComp. OPEB, other post-employment benefits. These are really health benefits that go to our retired employees. Lots of our contracts they're eligible for a certain period of time after they retire to help with their health costs, and that's what these dollars go for. Lease levy. This These are leases that we have for different pieces of property where we have education going on. So for an example, the office building for our community education is leased, and we're able to levy the dollars here to make those payments. The building that we're in, there's a small piece in here that's actually technically education-based, and is mainly the classroom for the online program and so forth. So we're able to lease and make those payments. The other areas here where you see it's it's $2.8 million, it gets to be kind of a big number. But these are also the additions on our elementaries that we put on the last few years. The payments on those additions are included here in the lease levy. And lease levy, again, for District 917, again, they don't own their buildings are leased. And then we make these payments, help them make those payments. I'm moving on to the last portion of the general fund. Again, these are assigned components also, but it's all capital related. Our operating capital is based on how old our buildings are. So every single year that we go down the road, all our buildings get a year older, we get a little bit more to help maintain those buildings. So that's what you're seeing here, a small increase. Our LTFM, or long-term facility maintenance dollars, this is the portion that runs through the general fund. Again, these dollars are used 100% for just maintenance of our buildings and keep them going. Capital projects levy. This is the only area of the levy where there's a flat rate, tax rate. So this is one area where actually if we see our net tax capacity growing, that rate remains the same, so we see a small increase here. You see there are 300,000. But if you look back up on top, you're seeing here we have a decrease here, $2.3 million. Really, this is a lot to do with the change in our enrollment, where we saw about a 2 to 2.5% increase over the last few years, and now the year that we're in has slowed immensely. So that's why you're seeing a negative $807,000 under prior year adjustment on top. So this is primarily the change in the general fund, a decrease of $2.3 million. When we move on to community service, this is a lot smaller piece of the levy, but community service has a small levy to take care of the programming, mainly their staffing needs. So you see there are about $400,000 for the basic levy. And you see the youth service after school, these are so many dollars per capita, and that's, you see we have a small increase in those two areas because we have our population growth continues here in Lakeville. Early childhood, this is an area where you see an increase here of 34,000, but on the backside there is a decrease on the aid. So this is one place we really see that fluctuating on a yearly basis, but so overall we get about the same amount. Home visits and the disabled adults, these are just actual reimbursements of the actual dollars that we spent in these areas. School age care, this levy is for special education students who participate in the before and after school program. So overall, you're seeing a small increase here in the community service, and this is primarily due to the negative adjustment we had last year. And that had to do during the pandemic, where we spent a lot less money than we anticipated, so we had to give that money back. This year it went back to the regular amount, so it looks like an increase, but it's really back to where we were. Debt service, again, the first line, these are the actual bonds we're paying on our buildings, and the second line are bonds that we borrowed to do our LTFM program. So we're making payments here at $22.6 million. For next year in 26. So overall, we see a levy of $78 million, where last year we had $78,285, so a decrease of $281, which is just about a third of 1% decrease. Now I just wanted to briefly just talk about, how does this affect different property owners? Because the only time you really see a change in your property is if you actually do something to make the value more. Especially in this district where we've saw our net tax capacity growing and growing, a lot of new housing, a lot of new properties coming on the rolls that lots of times will tell you an increase, but your actual increase is smaller because that it's getting spread out for over more and more and more buildings. But again, for the school district, that doesn't generate us more funds when we have more property because we're still based on how many students we have. A little different than the counties and the cities. Okay, so the only increase is that, we would see, like this year, we went out for a levy, but it did not pass. If it would have passed, then we would have saw an increase here in our operating portion of the levy. So everybody gets to pay a piece of the pie. So I hope y'all, looks like we have some pumpkin pie here, so we got through Thanksgiving and so forth. Anyway, so if you have a higher market value, you pay a bigger piece of the pie. Lower, of course, is less. A quick example, if we had 2 properties in the particular district, each of them was valued at $100,000, and we have a levy of $500, well, that's going to be split right down the middle because they're both valued at the exact same amount. So each would pay $250. But say the next year, the orange house increased by 10%, but the blue house increased by 25%. Then you would actually see a decrease in taxes for the orange house because their portion of the pie is smaller than the blue house. Okay, now we're going to look at some comparisons. Now, I did leave some handouts. I should have mentioned that earlier. The detail of the different funding streams was on a sheet by the door, but we also have this chart there too. So you can see what's happened over taxes over the last few years. And this is taking consideration of if your value remained the same. So you can see change in taxes from 24 to 25, which is the year we're talking about right now. You see that a house valued there at $250,000 is going to drop about $103. Our median valued home in this district is right around $450,000. So our, the middle of the road there, we're seeing about $153 less in taxes going into calendar year 25. So overall, we haven't saw huge increases. You saw a small decrease last year, and of course again this year. Here to break it down and look at it a little different way, you can see we got the values here at 350 and at 400,000. So you can see here, so 24, we saw for a value of 350, we're seeing about a $2,000 tax liability, where this year is dropping down to $1,850. So it's about that $150 decrease. Here you can see a little higher values of the homes. You can see, of course, a higher valued home pays a little more tax. So you see in 24 at that median level, that $450,000. This past year was about $2,580, where next year it looks like $2,426. Just to give you an idea what's happened to your taxes if you sit on pretty close to those values. Now, if we do look at what's happened with our net tax capacity over the last few years, we definitely see some growth. Again, though, when you look at calendar year 25, we're seeing decreases in the taxes paid. Again, 350 and 4, and we move ahead to here the median value here of $450,000. There, that decrease of over $100. I always like to just make some mention of the credits, if you're eligible for them. There is, for everybody that's got homesteaded property, you might be eligible for a refund up to a maximum of $3,140, or renters up to $2,400. But it is based on your income. So as you have higher income, it gets harder to get these refunds. There's a special property tax refund that everybody's available for. So if you have at least a 6% increase in your taxes and over $100, you can get up to 60% of that back, up to a maximum of $2,500. Now, in this case, from the school district, we don't see that increase this year, but I'm not sure what the county and city have for you. Now, there is a senior citizen property tax deferral for some of our senior citizens who want to help with their taxes. They can defer some of their taxes over a period of years, but your income has to be under $96,000 on a yearly basis. But the caveat here is when that property gets sold or the homeowner passes away, then that tax is due at that time, plus any interest. But this is something that some people have taken advantage of. Okay, now at this time, we'll take any comments from the community. and then we'll go on and look at certifying the levy after that. We ask anybody that comes up this evening to give their name and their address, and open.
Go ahead and come forward.
Hi, my name is Ben Pierce. I live at 18142 Headwaters Drive in Lakeville. Wanted to go over a few things that were discussed. So the last two meetings that I've gone to for Truth and Taxation, I've noticed there's some hidden assumptions that are built into these projections. One of them is that if the district population is increasing, therefore the school district enrollment is increasing. I didn't see any slides with enrollment this year, so I'm curious if enrollment increased this year. The other thing I wanted to bring up is there's another big hidden assumption, which is that if we're not getting enough money from the state or the federal government, the only way we can get that revenue is to just raise the property taxes. But we've got a lot of assets in the district. I've seen in the community ed guides, there's a few open gym sessions they had this fall where people pay a few bucks, bring their kids when it's cold, and they can bounce around the gym. I think that's something that the district should do way more. Turn it into a business. Basically, make it so that maybe they do a revenue split of 50-50 or 60-40 with the company that has bouncy houses and stuff. Bring them in the gym, have parents come in wintertime. I take my kid to one of those places. But the school district could easily convert their gym into something like that. And if there's a concern about having district residents get a chance to use the space, they would get first dibs if they want to book the place 2 weeks ahead of time. Otherwise, it should be used for maybe like a business split where someone has like a contractor comes in with the bouncy houses. I think that would be a great way to do things. I'm also curious where the district's parking its cash. Money market funds, if you go to like Vanguard or Fidelity, they'll pay you 5%. I don't think the district has to pay taxes on the interest it gets. So where are we parking the cash? Are we getting 5% interest, or are we just leaving it with the bank like Wells Fargo to take care of, and then they collect the difference? Thank you.
Are there any other citizens that would like to participate in public comment related to the tax levy? No? Bill? For that enrollment question, I thought we
Yeah,
were short like 250 students this year. Is that correct?
Yeah, we actually had a report. We actually had a report last meeting on our enrollment. Our enrollment has slowed. As I mentioned earlier tonight, we saw a 2.5% increase on a yearly basis for a few years. We are seeing that much smaller this year, and our projection going forward is at about a 1% increase for future years.
Thank you.
And I would just ask the board tonight to certify the levy. I should have the amount.
Can I ask one more question before you do all that stuff?
Did you wish to address for public comment?
Yeah. Am I able to do that? Or are you
Sure, I'll allow it.
black on the
I try not to bang the gavel, no.
It's just a question.
Okay.
Jay Olson, 9280 Overland Drive. What's the cost per student? We got so many students, we got so many dollars going on. What's like an enrollment figure? What's the cost per student? That was it.
Thank you.
Just, I guess, to reference that question, the exact amount is in our annual report, which is on our website. We just brought forward the annual report here this last month. We receive, like we talked about earlier, about $7,200 from the state of Minnesota, and we look at our operating levies, we get about $1,300 more per student. But when you look through all those other pieces of revenue streams, it is about $10,000 that is spent on a student on a yearly basis.
Thank you.
And then what I'd like the board to certify tonight is a total levy of $3,251.
Do board members have any questions or comments?
I will make a recommendation to certify the pay 25 tax levy with the amount as indicated by Mr. Holgram.
Okay, so we have a recommendation to certify the levy. Making a motion for that, correct, Director Keller?
Yes.
Is there a second for that?
I'll second.
Second by Director Carly Anderson. Any further discussion? Go ahead, Carly.
Can I just ask one clarifying question based on what you said? If I'm doing my math right, we're getting $9,000 per student, but the cost is $10,000 per student? Is that what you just said, Mr. Holmgren?
No, and when you add the other revenue streams in, we're getting 10,000.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was
And
like,
we're spending,
that
we're
doesn't
spending the
add
same
up.
amounts we're bringing in. When you look at our budget, we're looking at our fund balance of increasing about $2 million, but that's about a 1% difference from revenue to expenditures.
Thank you.
Director Lind?
I think a point should be made, that's an average, 10,000. We're spending more on secondary than we are in elementary, and we're getting more money for secondary than we get for elementary.
That is correct. Students who are seventh grade and higher in age get a weighting factor of 1.2. So yes, the amount that we actually receive for a high school student is around $8,500. For the elementary is at the 71.
Thank you.
That's revenue per student.
So in my simple mind, is that the same as the cost per student, or is there a different? I get so much revenue per student.
Yeah, our budget right now is we are spending almost the same amount as we're bringing in. But there is less expenditures than revenue by about 1%.
Any further questions from the board? Okay, so hearing that we have a first and a second, we will put it to a vote. All in favor of passing the pay 25 tax levy, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Certifying the levy, sorry. All right, our next item on the agenda for discussion is the LASA contract settlement, and Brenda will be sharing some information on that with the board.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Superintendent Bauman, and members of the school board. You have before you this evening approval of the LASA contract. This is our principals and other administrators. The district has reached a tentative agreement with LASA for the 24-26 collective bargaining agreement. Highlights of the negotiated agreement include longevity at years 10 and 15 of continued service and an increase to the salary schedule of 2.25% year 1 of the contract and 4.75% year 2 of the contract. The total package cost of the settlement is within board parameters at 8.36%, and the settlement is recommended for approval.
Okay. Do you have any comments or questions from board members? No. Do we have a motion to approve the LASA contract settlement?
I'll make a motion.
We have a motion by Director David Anderson. Do we
I'll
have a
second it.
Second by Director Lind. Any further questions? Okay, hearing none, we'll put it to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
The last item that we have for discussion tonight is the superintendent contract. I will go ahead and open up the floor for the board to discuss. Director Keller?
So, thank you. It's one of the things that I see with the evaluation, or the contract that we have here, is under the evaluation section. And I would like to see that edited. It says right now that the school board shall oversee, direct, and evaluate the superintendent's performance as the school board sees fit. And in the superintendent's prior contract and in what I would like to propose is that we be a little bit more specific about the school board will evaluate the superintendent's performance following each contract year. I think that's important to make sure that we commit to reviewing him on an annual, or the superintendent on an annual basis. And I would also like to add that the evaluation tool and timeline will be developed by the school board with input from the superintendent. I think it's important that we maintain our managerial rights, but I think it's also important to indicate that we want input from the superintendent on the process and the timeline to make sure that it is aligned with what our systems, the rest of our system is aligned doing, and that we're aligning to the strategic plan and to the board goals. So in the end, I would prefer that Section 2 under the evaluation state that the school board will evaluate the superintendent's performance each contract year. The evaluation tool and timeline will be developed by the school board with input from the superintendent. And again, that statement was in his prior contract, and so that's what I would like that to read. And if the board is comfortable with that and the rest of the contract, I would be comfortable moving forward with this agreement.
I agree with that addition. Are there any other additions from the board or questions? I know I did have,
We moved the February 1st to,
I was just going to mention that Director Thompson had asked if we would move up the date. I think is it February 1st right now?
yes.
What I'm referring to is the date on the contract that states when the superintendent would let the board know that they would not be seeking an additional 3-year term. And the contract date is February 1st. And Director Thompson had brought up a very valid point that the board needs to start early in the process to look for a search firm and kind of start that process if the superintendent is not wishing to extend or seek another contract. So he was asking if we could move that date up to January 1st, or
I said December 1st.
you said December 1st, but he said January
I think
1st.
December would be good.
Thoughts?
I would agree that that could be moved up and should be moved up. I think, I believe, now that I'm thinking about it, the prior contract that we had in place with Superintendent Bauman was in January,
I thought it was
sometime
January too.
near mid to end of January. So I think it was like prior to like what our work session would have been, so that if that, whatever that notification was, we would be, have time in that January session to discuss it. So moving that date up to like January 15th or something like that, I think might be fair and viable if that's agreeable with Superintendent Bauman.
Director Carly Anderson?
Yeah, I don't know what is fair in terms of, and Mr. Bauman, feel free to weigh in here, but I feel like we had said we really wanted to get things going this year, in October, November.
That's
so
why I
that we,
suggested
yeah,
December 1st. Yeah.
like January feels like we would really be behind the 8 ball if we had to go out and do a search.
So I'm not sure that necessarily would. Most of our prior superintendents and process, it's a little bit of a different timeline than when we're doing staffing. Staffing, we like to start to be able to do for our teachers and our staff early in February so that we can get out above or before the group. And I know we're looking to try to move that into January. But with the superintendents, if that notification comes in January, the employment of a search firm or whatever that process is can almost start immediately and can be completed easily within 30 days. And most superintendents usually come on board on July 1st. So that gives you plenty of time to be able to do that and still be seeking superintendents before they get taken up by other districts. That seems to be a viable timeline.
And if we put our date as like we would like to know by January 1st, then obviously they would let us know before that. So that would put us within the same time frame that we.
I think you have to actually make the date a non-holiday, though.
Oh,
So
that's
I
right,
think,
sorry.
So I think you got to go into the
15th.
first Monday of January
Okay.
type of thing, after January 1st.
Okay,
Well, I don't know that there technically is, but that would be the fair thing to do, is to,
first Monday of January after
the
the
first
holiday. Okay,
Monday
yeah.
after January 1st.
Got
Can we
it.
say something like that first Monday or whenever is, like, when a sitting superintendent is aware that they won't be going for another contract, just to, like, some terminology, just to reflect, like, when they've made that
You
decision?
could say no later than,
Yeah.
so they don't wait till then.
Okay. That makes sense to me. Any further comments or questions?
I'll second Judy's motion.
I don't think she made a motion yet, did she?
I said I would move forward if
Okay,
everybody
sorry.
else was in agreement with that.
All right, so, and do we need to amend that motion to add the date on there? Because we
Yeah,
changed
we-
that after the motion?
I suppose we could, but yes, so that we have the change that I had as well as the change, and I'm sorry, how do you have that worded?
Which one?
January
The
1st.
January 1st?
I put the, no later than, the
The
first
first
Monday
Monday.
of January, or the first Monday after January 1st.
Yep,
Yes,
Yep.
no later than the first Monday after January 1st. Does
yep,
that make sense?
yes.
Okay,
Yes.
all right.
So I do make a motion to accept those edits to this contract, and
Okay.
I make a motion to then move the contract forward with those edits.
And I'll second.
So we have a motion by Director Kelleher and a second by Director David Anderson. Any further discussion on the superintendent contract? Okay, hearing none, we'll put it to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries 5-0. All right. We do not have any additions to the agenda tonight, so we'll move on to the superintendent's report and outgoing board member appreciation. I'll go ahead and start that off, if you don't mind. We have a little bit different award ceremony than we have done in the past. I had reached out to someone within the district to make the board member appreciation plaques this year, so I'm thrilled to recognize the incredible work of Kevin Bass and his student, Joshua Steinhardt, who have crafted these beautiful personalized plaques for our retiring Lakeville Area School Board members. These plaques are more than just a thoughtful gift. They're works of art that showcase cutting-edge skills and tools. Handcrafted at Lakeville North, they were cut with a water jet cutter for precision, a UV printer for detailed graphics, welders for structural elements, and more. Each plaque is a testament to the innovation and craftsmanship fostered in our STEM classrooms. This project is a perfect example of what makes Lakeville's STEM programs exceptional. From advanced equipment to hands-on learning, our students aren't just sitting in classrooms, they're actively solving problems, creating real-world projects, and gaining skills that prepare them for high-demand careers. Whether it's designing, engineering, programming, or collaborating, these experiences set our students apart. As we celebrate our retiring board members tonight, let these plaques also remind us of the amazing opportunities Lakeville students have to grow, innovate, and lead. The future is bright because of programs like these. And I think it's a wonderful testament to the board members that are going out. It's one thing that Director Lind and Director Kelleher and Director David Anderson have always said, is that we need to focus our discussion around students and make sure that we're talking about what's best for students. And what a better way to do that than to have the students help make their awards. Pass it on to you.
Thank you. Do you want to, okay, I will, I'm going to go up to the regular
You
podium.
go for it.
We're still in session, is that correct?
That is
Okay.
correct.
All right. I want to say to Director Anderson, Director Kelleher, and Director Lynn, got a lot of years that we can go back and share. So I apologize. I'm trying to stay a little composed here, but I think Director Kelleher, you've been here
Forever?
close to 28 years, I think is what the math is.
Yes.
And Director Lynn, I know you're more than 50 years in this district in some capacity. And Director Anderson, before you came on the board, the years of support and service and your dedication to the community and then coming on the school board, just, it's hard to say goodbye. Farewells are always difficult, and I know you're just going off of the board and you'll still be in the community. And I do also want to say Director Lewis is sitting right here and many years with you as well, and I know she wanted to be here for you, and thank you for coming. We appreciate that. From administration, I just want to say, beyond the words of thank you, the gratitude that we have for your service. And to our listening public and those that are here this evening, service to the community is one of the most important things I think we can do in our lifetime. And you all have stepped up and done that in a magnificent manner. I know there's all kinds of challenges, and we all know what they are. But your heart and your commitment is exemplary beyond the words that I can really muster and say, because they're in my heart. I think in our administrators across the system, our staff. Even though it's a bumpy ride, it's a heartfelt thank you and congratulations on your service. Service to the community is just beyond anything that I could ever ask of a fellow community member. So thank you for that. And those of you that are sitting on the board now, Dr. Anderson and Kim Baker, our board chair, share that sentiment with you as well. Service over self is a really important example to set for all of our young people. And so thank you for setting that example and doing that as well as you have. And I also know there's a lot of personal sacrifice that's involved in this. If nothing else, there's an incredible amount of time. What we see on board nights and work sessions, there's committees, and there's all kinds of other community events that you have to be engaged in. And so there's a personal sacrifice that each of you give, and we are very appreciative. These Minnesota state gifts from your board colleagues they speak for themselves. We have a card to give each of you. That's our saying thank you to you, but again, from our heart, thank you so much for everything you do.
You gonna present it to them? You can hand it to them.
It's heavy.
I gotta make sure I grab the right one here. Okay, glasses.
Judy's first, she's been around the longest.
I think it says on here 27.5 years. 27.5 years, so that gets in the record.
Thank you. Thank you.
Director Lynn, I know it only says 12, but we know it's like 70, right?
Feels like it.
And then Director Anderson, It says 4, but we know it's more like 20, right? Thank you.
Before we go to adjournment, I would like to give an opportunity for each board member, outgoing board member, to say something at this time if they would like to. Director Kelleher, is there anything that you would like to say?
I'll let Terry Lynn start,
Thank you.
or
Oh,
Dave,
thanks a lot.
or Dave.
Yeah, all right. I've been here for a long, long, long time. Picture 1968. I got hired as a 7th grade English and social studies teacher. It was a block program. I had the same kids for English and for social studies. That was innovative back then. There were 3 buildings in the district. McGuire Middle School.
I hate
was
to interrupt. I was going to ask if that was the one-room schoolhouse.
McGuire Middle School was Lakeville Junior Senior High, and the board offices were in there, the DO was in there, and the junior high and the high school was in there. Orchard Lake there were two elementaries. One was Orchard Lake without the media center, and the other one was JFK, half of JFK, because the north half was being built in '68. The south half was already built. So anyway. What?
These guys,
It is going to be short.
it's enjoyable.
Sorry. I had around 50% of all the 7th graders in the district. That's how big this school was. That year I was drafted in December. The school board got an extension for me until the end of the school year. I then joined the U.S. Air Force for 4 years as a Chinese linguist, and the board gave me a military leave. So I had a guaranteed job when I came back. I returned roughly to the same position in 1973 and stayed there till the middle 80s, where I became a media specialist at Orchard Lake. Then in 1994, I was principal at JFK. That was for 4 years. In '98, I moved over to Lakeview and retired from there in '11. And then, lucky me, got elected to the school board in 2012 for 12 years. As a teacher, principal, and school board member over 50 years, I've learned a few things that I want to share, especially with new board members. Number 1, teachers, principals, support staff, parents, and district office personnel all want what's best for kids. I believe this common theme is what's made this district so great, and this needs to continue. Number 2, as I've said many times, politics has no place in schools. Political agendas most often do not take into consideration what's best for kids, but what's best for the political organization. This may be Pollyanna or naive approach on my part, especially now, since political groups are centering on electing their supporters to school boards across the nation. However, I truly believe that politics in schools divides communities and has a negative impact on our students. 3, remember, there's always 2 sides to every problem or challenge. Seek out both sides before making any decisions. My experience has shown me that both sides have valid points which need to be considered and used to find common ground for consensus. Also, all sides need to feel that they have ownership in the final decision. 4, all of us need to remember that school boards are different than other elected governmental entities, like city council or state legislature. School boards deal only with governance and not with administrative actions. When I was first elected to the school board, I came with approaches I was going to solve everybody's problems, whether it was a concern with a staff member or concerns with curriculum or with class sizes. I learned very quickly it's not my job to intervene and disrupt the established process for dealing with challenges. Stakeholders need to go through the chain of command, which the school board is the final level, to deal with their concerns. The chain of command should never be short-circuited by a board member. 5, most important of all is that the well-being of our students needs to be focus of all decisions throughout the district. We all have a common goal to take each child to their maximum potential. At times, it's hard to do, especially during budget cuts. Budget cuts usually impact our students negatively, but it's our responsibility to make choices that have the least impact on students, if at all possible. If decisions are made without keeping the needs of students in mind, then we're doing a disservice to them. In summary, these are the things I've learned over the many years I've been here, and I hope they have some benefit for you. Finally, it's been an honor for me to be associated with the Lakeville Area Public Schools for 50-plus years, and I truly appreciate all the support I have had from everyone. Thank you so much.
David?
All right, mine's going to be a lot shorter.
Mike,
What,
can you actually speak into the mic?
so what did Terry always say? This never happened?
This has never happened before.
This has never happened before. That was Terry's line when I first started. This has never happened before. So it's been challenging, but an honor and a privilege to serve the students and teachers and citizens of Lakeville. So I thank you very much. The reason I got involved, I have two adopted sons, but the main reason I got involved is because my younger son had a cardiac arrest when he was 2 months old and almost died. And the Lakeville School District started servicing him before he even entered school. At 3 months old, they started coming to the hospital, our home, sending teachers, PTs, and OTs. And so I felt a real commitment to that, and that's why I became involved with SEAC and the chair of SEAC for many years, and then a parent liaison. So, yeah, so I'm getting emotional. I didn't think I would, 'cause it's been really hard, but I'm actually going to miss you guys, so thank you.
All right, so I'm going to need 8 minutes of your time to recap my reflection of 28 years on the school board. So bear with me, but this is probably one of the most rewarding things I've ever done other than having my 4 children. So it's been a great honor. So preparing students for success after graduation is created by working together. Advocating for education requires an open mind and a commitment to listen to all perspectives representing the community at large. We have a district to be so proud of, and it's not possible without the voice, the involvement, and the support of all of our stakeholders, so solutions and educational outcomes reflect our entire school community. Lakeville Area School District is 86 square miles, touching 2 counties, 5 cities, and 1 township. Board members work on behalf of the district at large, no matter where you live in the district, what specific needs your child has, or what school your child attends. Education is a collaborative effort among the student, family, school, and community. It's important to continue to seek student, parent, and community participation in making significant district decisions. Our district is only a third developed, so as we continue to grow and become one of the top largest districts in the state, the support and engagement is critical as the district builds and manages facilities and operational costs. Minnesota statute requires school districts to ask for funding. Asking for funding is not because of poor planning or poor budgeting. It is because the laws are written for active community engagement to have the ultimate say in the direction of the district. Excellence requires ongoing evaluation and accountability. School members are accountable to the public. Our school community expects us to achieve positive results for our district, and we should expect the community and each other to hold us accountable, even though this may lead to some uncomfortable conversations. We have always been committed to cultivating trust by maintaining transparency and open communication with the public. We were one of the first districts to video record our board meetings, followed by live streaming and having them available on demand for later viewing. Holding others and myself accountable to our words and our actions, personally and as a board, is critical for our system to be sustainable and successful. Treating the public and each other with respect and remaining transparent fosters the trust between our school board and the school community. Parents seek options to best serve the educational needs for their children. For the last few decades, the schools are the number one reason people move to Lakeville, according to the City of Lakeville surveys. Our district has been committed to partnerships with businesses, the trades, higher education to provide opportunities and creative ways to enhance our educational programs. It has been so rewarding to work in collaboration with our teachers and our parents, empowering them to develop learning options for our students. Our K-12 online program was implemented as the first fully accredited K-12 online program in the state. Some highly innovative teachers and one of our former superintendents researched and developed a skill-based program rather than the traditional grade-level program to become Impact Academy. Our teachers who oversaw the gifted learners were able to implement the Ignite program. Opening one of the first alternative learning centers south of the river gave our students a place to learn when the large traditional setting did not work for them. Families move here for the schools and the strengths of all of our programs. Co-curricular activities in our schools develop well-rounded students beyond the classroom. These activities keep our students involved in safe and healthy endeavors. Again, empowering students, parents, and community members to lead and change and help them navigate the process has been extremely rewarding. A few personal highlights are when my sons were traveling all over the metro area to play this new sport called lacrosse. In researching it, I learned many of our students were playing the sport, traveling to other cities. So a group of parents took the lead, and as I helped them navigate the process to bring lacrosse to our district. I was also honored to serve as the board representative as we initiated our special education advisory council. In conversations with our special education director at the time, her and I discussed how some of the districts around us were considering adaptive sports for students with disabilities. We brought the idea to our advisory council and they supported it and prepared us for presenting the concept to the board. And since then, our adaptive sports teams have soared to success. The Hockey Association leaders reached out to board members when they were looking for district and city support to build a local ice arena. The president of the Hockey Association at that time and I developed a great working relationship, and as I helped him navigate the process and overcome roadblocks. Together, the Hockey Association, School District, and City of Lakeville realized the successful build of Ames Arena. The strength of our co-curricular programs, along with the quality of our facilities, not only benefit our students, but they generate activity for our businesses and bolstering our local economy. I've had the pleasure with working with 6 superintendents. Dr. Wallstrom, who asked me to run back in 1996, Jim Bach, who served as superintendent when the Lakeville Area Schools was the first all-woman school board in the state, Dr. Gary Amoroso, Dr. Lisa Snyder, retired Lieutenant Colonel Michael Bauman, and now I guess back for round 2, and Dr. Doug Van Zyl. Serving as chair for 9 of my 28 years allowed me to develop wonderful partnerships with each of them. Under their student-focused leadership, past boards have been able to prioritize funding educational programs to meet the needs of our students in a safe and secure learning environment, developing the skills, character traits, and knowledge needed for the success after graduation. And as a board member, community involvement and volunteering played an important role in keeping us connected to the students, the parents, businesses, trades, legislators, and community leaders. As board members, we can and should leverage our network of business and personal relationships across industries to benefit our students, our programs, and our district. As I complete my time on this board, I am fortunate to be able to stay involved in areas that are of passion to me. I'm now serving on the 360 Communities Board. I've joined a group of former superintendents and board members as a consultant for board development and chair leadership, and I will be part of the team with 3D Response, which is the patented multi-layered security system that we have in our buildings across the district. I must acknowledge all the district employees, past and present, from the superintendents to the administration and building leaders, to the district staff and building staff, to the custodial and food service staff, to our teachers, substitutes, paras, student resource officers, and all of those who help out in the classrooms, to every single district employee. Your passion and your care for our children is remarkable. Every person matters. Every position has an impact on the learning environment. Our district is what it is today because of you. Thank you for your dedication to our students. I have seen the district grow from 3,900 students to over 12,000 students. By working together, we have managed through challenges and addressed the needs of our students. We have built upon the success of past boards to keep the momentum moving forward and upward. Thank you for the trust you have placed in me over the years, and it has been my honor to represent the Lakeville area schools over the past 28 years.
Thank you for your service, each and every one of you. And congratulations to Superintendent Michael Bauman. We are thrilled to have you on, and I look forward to the next 2 years. So having completed all of our items on the agenda tonight, I will.
I will make a motion to
All
adjourn.
right.
And I'll second it.
I have a motion to adjourn from Director Kelleher, a second by Director David Anderson, and a third by Director Terry Lynn. Any further discussion on adjournment? All right, we'll put it to a vote. All in favor of adjourning this meeting, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you and have a wonderful evening.